Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition. Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod. Jesus!
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and our very special Podcast Day episode. Happy Star Wars Podcast Day every year, February 7th. And this week, we have our long-awaited, behind the scenes, behind the blast doors, of Star Wars Escape Pod. We got some Star Wars headlines for you, as well as just some general chat and banter. And, it's a pretty relaxing recording night in the Escape Pod. So we got our co-host Blake and our good friend Kirk, and we're just gonna be hashing it out. So welcome back for the ride. Let's get into it.
Another happy landing.
This party's over.
This party's over.
That's what we're opening with?
Yeah. Well,
That was the shortest episode ever.
thought I would open with a joke.
This is the best.
Open up with a joke in our terrible soundboard.
That's right. There's always a bigger fish.
There's always a bigger fish. That's right.
Liar! That's the best one.
That's the best one for sure. All right, happy podcast day, everybody. We're happy Star Wars podcast day. If you Google the hashtag SWPD 2024 or hashtag Star Wars podcast day, you will see that February 7th was Star Wars podcast day. And we are probably one of the last Star Wars podcasts to put out an episode for Star Wars podcast day, because now it's turned into Star Wars podcast week. But yeah, it's like as things go.
Podcast day plus a few extra.
Right, exactly. We had a bit of a schedule mishap. That was totally my bad. I misscheduled the lovely guest that we had on last week, or
Molly,
2 weeks ago. Yeah, Molly. And that episode was supposed to drop later, and I guess my settings for the day didn't save, and then it just dropped. I was like halfway through my day on Monday, and I was like, oh shoot, and I got this tweet.
Already out.
Yeah, I got this tweet mentioning me from mentioning the Star Wars Escape Pod Twitter feed, right? And
the Jedi News.
It was the Jedi News one,
I saw
and
that one.
yeah, they're always so good about putting it out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, it's out.
Something's gone terribly wrong.
Yeah. So here we are, but. Dropping
that is a very elaborate excuse. I heard you were just watching the holiday special on repeat.
It was like Groundhog Day,
forgot.
but way worse.
Or way better in Josh's case.
Yeah, exactly.
You can watch Itchy forever.
Oh, geez, yeah. Itchy. Oh, well, no. So, Star Wars Podcast Day 2024. This is celebrating the 25th anniversary of the first Star Wars podcast, which was Jedi Talk, way back in 1999 on February 7th. So between the 7th and the 13th, that's sort of where all these Star Wars podcasts, like ourselves and others out there, have all kind of come together to put out an episode with this particular hashtag or title or whatever, and recognize this is the day. This is the day that we do what we do because those guys did what they did, and then so-and-so was inspired by so-and-so, and just snowballed until now we've got close to 4,000 Star Wars podcasts floating around the internet somewhere. And that's just what I was told from
That's crazy.
someone on Twitter who's, they have taken it upon themselves to document the entire Star Wars podcast community.
I'm curious what the upswing in total podcast numbers was around like the Force
A lot.
Awakens
A
launch.
huge amount.
Must have been a huge amount of people all jumped on board.
Kind of between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, that was when a lot of them started popping up.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit late. I thought it would have been sooner than that.
Yeah. The ramp up was there, but the skyrocketing was
Right. At that point, people wanted their opinion out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah. So let's see here. So we're going to give a little bit of an introduction about ourselves, what this show is about. Because there might be people tuning in that, they're perhaps you're listening right now and you're like, yeah, this is my first time to Star Wars Escape Pod. So what are we all about? What do we do? What do we do, Kirk?
We talk a bit about Star Wars, and we talk a little bit about the holiday special. That's once every 2 weeks. We like to keep it lightweight.
Really, it's just the two topics.
That's about it, really. Just general Star Wars news and the holiday special. Really, that's about it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Good way. How would you describe it, Blake?
I would say this podcast is more or less just an excuse for us to get together and hang out and talk about our passion for Star Wars.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. I mean, it's a lot of things. I think doing Star Wars podcasts is a lot of things to a lot of people. A lot of people listen to Star Wars podcasts. It's their work day, it's their work shift, it's their commute home from school, it's their drive to the grocery store or whatever, right? And I think about this sometimes because I'm a podcast listener. I wouldn't say I'm an avid podcast listener, but I listen to podcasts, and I just find it relaxing. It's entertaining, it's relaxing.
It is the modern AM radio.
Yeah,
the topics you're actually interested in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's worth mentioning that because obviously there's some inspiration there from other shows out there. I'm a big fan of Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You podcast. That one's great. I love Smallville, so I've been thoroughly enjoying Talkville quite a bit. Shout out to any Smallville fans out there. I mean, Rebel Force Radio is big.
Say RFR was probably a big one.
Big inspiration. So I don't know if any of our listeners also listen to Rebel Force Radio, but don't leave us or anything. But go check them out though. I mean, they're some fun guys. They put out very long episodes, very 3-hour long Star Wars podcast episodes. They
have been at it forever.
They actually do that for a living. This is our hobby.
I thought that was still just a side thing for them.
I think it is, but they're radio people for a living, right?
I think only one of them is.
Oh, maybe it's just one of them now. Okay, I think they were both in radio though.
Maybe I'm wrong. I was under the understanding. It's been so long to remember their names.
Yeah,
Jimmy Mack.
Jimmy Mack and Jason Swank.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Radio legends. But why are we called Star Wars Escape Pod? That's a good question because there's not. I think there's only one or maybe two other Star Wars podcasts out there that have Escape Pod in their title. Mm-hmm. And we've had Star Wars Escape Pod registered since 2015.
Okay.
Because that's when we actually wanted to get a show off the ground, right?
Can you imagine what would it be now?
We were chatting all the time. Yeah, I know, right? Episode 600 or 800, who knows?
Crazy, yeah.
That's when I made the email. That's when I made an account with our current host, Podbean, various different things. And I remember our email was theescapepod@outlook.com. That's when the show started. It was with that email as well. Outlook, yeah. And then we got so much spam.
We're in the escape pod floating around, looking out.
Yeah.
Just floating there.
Let me tell you something about Outlook. Outlook is so stupid, for spam and junk mail that's why we switched to Gmail within the first 50 episodes of doing the podcast because I just couldn't take it anymore. I was like, you know what?
Oh, got another follower. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
There's a sale at Burns & Barn.
Kirk, do you have an Outlook?
I've never owned an Outlook, I must say.
Please tell us.
From what I can remember.
A good choice.
Yeah, please tell us your outlook on Outlook.
My outlook on Outlook is very negative. The exact opposite of the, I was going to say The Force Awakens, but I actually like The Force Awakens, not too bad.
That's fair.
Yeah. So Star Wars Escape Pod, the title just sort of rung because Escape Pod is obviously pod is in the name, pod for podcast, but Escape Pod being very historical in the first Star Wars movie. It's the first shot that ILM ever finished was the Escape Pod exiting out of the Tantive, for however you want to pronounce it. And that is the reason why our logo is the Escape Pod, because it goes with the title.
Also the first shot ILM did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's the first one they did. It's completed because they were made for Star Wars, and that was the first one they did for Star Wars. So it is arguably, and I think there's some. It's on the record somewhere where that's the first one that they did, but very cool. So that was why when we first started the podcast, our logo was just that. It was just the screenshot, right? And then 2 years ago, I think it was now, we did an entire. I went weeks, reiterated a new logo for our show as a vector, right? Because I wanted to, start doing things like stickers and And this other,
you wanted a clean logo you could scale.
yeah, clean logo we could
I remember
scale.
you're very adamant about that.
Yeah.
I really liked the original logo.
Yeah, you still really love the original logo.
That's
Yeah.
just classic.
Yeah, I mean it's super blurry because it's just a screenshot with the text on it, right? But I know that'll live forever in your heart. But yeah, our new logo is like I like it. It's cool. We had like a lot of different voting going on between this color and that color, and then like this layout and that layout, and it kind of took a while to get an idea. But then of course, like at some point, the red tint kind of made it in there, you know, with the red ring, and I like how that turned out, and so it's got its own sort of signature twist on
It's because that was our turn to the dark side.
Yeah.
I need to see this old logo. I haven't seen it before.
Yeah, it's
You
okay.
joined after.
All you got to do is watch episode 4 and that one scene where the escape pod launches out of the like the cylindrical like tube.
It's like the launch bay thing, yeah.
Yeah, like when 3PO and R2 launch out with the plans to the Death Star, right? And you see the escape pod kind of drop down like through that hole. It's that. Like that was the original logo, and I just took a screenshot of that and I put the text over top. And it's the same layout as the text is in now, I believe, but it was just different. Like yeah, and that wasn't even.
I'll give it a look.
Yeah. There was actually a beta logo that I used for like a hot minute before changing it, like within the first week.
Was it just a circle?
No, it was like this really bad Photoshop, like of a Star Destroyer, like in I think it was like stars in space or a hyperspace or something, and it was like just it almost looked like stickers, like it was like Star Destroyer and then like an escape pod coming towards, like it just didn't have like a recognizable thing that someone could just kind of remember, you know, like it was just like a picture at that point, and I wasn't happy with it, and the text placement was all off and everything like that, and I was like, oh, I gotta try and figure something else out. So that's where the screenshot came to mind. I was like, oh, cool. You know, I'm a big fan of that. So it worked with the title, and well, we have the title in the first place, so it made sense.
I remember you pitching this idea and us kind of spitballing a bit. Then we kind of just never made a move. I know I was concerned about how much time we needed to dedicate. And I think maybe waiting was the right call because you're able to streamline it so much. If we started in 2015, I feel like a lot more labor.
It would have been, yeah. I think it would have been a little harder to do. And now, you know, like as the rise of starting up podcasts like have kind of taken off, like a lot of people have started their own, you know, for whatever subject that they like to talk about, and the technology side has become easier as well. So when we started this up, like when I was up late at night, you know, getting the RSS feed plugged into all of these different sites, right? Because that's how it works. Like when you start a podcast, you can choose your host platform. Right now, there's like a few options out there. There's like Buzzsprout, Podbean. There's Anchor, which is now it's owned by Spotify, so it's technically now Spotify for podcasters, whatever they call it now. And there's a few others. You know, some of them are free, some of them are paid. And from there, you used to get an RSS feed. So anytime you upload a new episode, you just upload it once, and you put in your title, your description, all that stuff, and you get an RSS feed that you then take to another site, which would be like an app or like a distribution site. So they don't necessarily host your episode, but they can kind of import it through the RSS feed, right? So that would be places like Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Castbox and iHeartRadio, Pandora, you know, various places, Amazon, you know, so many, Google Podcasts, so many options. And that was a manual process. So like back when we started this, back when we started the show, yeah, it was a lot of work. And since then, I think a lot of the technology side, you know, for people who would just want to do a one-stop shop with going to Anchor or wherever, like there were plugins where it was like, okay, yeah, we automatically send your feed to these places, but it was only like 2 or 3. And since then, the list has kind of grown exponentially, you know, as podcasting, I think, has kind of taken off a bit better. So now people don't need to do that anymore. They don't need to go to all these individual sites for, you know, plugging in their show. Mm-hmm. They can just kind of host the show somewhere, and the rest of it just happens automatically. But since,
would you say that podcasting then, like since back then, has become a lot easier to produce and upload one?
100%.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Now there's podcast host sites that not only let you host your platform, but they also give you a entire virtual recording booth as part of like the tools that you can use to make the podcast. So like if you choose to host a podcast with Spotify, you can get the app and you can basically just have a remote phone call with somebody through their phone, and it'll cloud record and everything, and it'll you can throw sound effects in there. You can run the whole thing from your phone, and it's not going to sound nearly as good as if you're using XLR microphones or USB microphones or whatever. But it's achievable. It's achievable, right? Yeah. So
I think the first few episodes we had one mic and we're just all in a room.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was very hard to hear what was happening.
Right. Getting the RSS feed.
See, that would have been very hard for me to join those type of podcasts.
Oh, it was impossible.
We would have had to have a speaker next to the mic just for you.
It was impossible. Let me tell you, like when we first started this thing, I went to the store and because at this point it had been a couple of years since we got the account started in 2015, and time just went by and we just never really got anything going, right? And then there was at one point I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna do this. I'm just gonna start it up, and then we'll see what happens. Time will go by. Maybe we get I can get more people involved and stuff like that.
I know you had a simple plan to get started. Take it easy, dip your toe in, and just go over all 300 episodes of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Something light.
Yeah, exactly. So I got to give huge props to my first couple guests who are friends of ours that have been on. Recent history was Calvin. Calvin, my first guest ever. I think it was like the second episode or third episode we did. It was technology in the prequels. Is it like too much? Is it too over the top or not? It was something like that. And the quality, sound quality, and everything, like it sucks now, but I mean, like it was like the third episode, right? Yeah, and he was my first guest, so
you're figuring it out.
Yeah, shout out to Calvin. He was most recently on for the holiday special commentary, and we always make jokes that anytime he's on, which he's come on in the past, there was always a bit of an extra few numbers in the episode that he was on. So we always joke that he's the one who brings the audience. But and then Reed, our friend Reed, he was in there as well early on. Vader VR, Vader Immortal games reviews. That's what he was on for. And then of course Diego, which was like our now retired co-host. He was persistent for
Remember the Fallen.
40. Yeah, Remember the Fallen. Yeah. 40 episodes of the podcast. He has more than 40 actually, because there was a few he came on after for. But him and I did Clone Wars together, Clone Wars Talk. That was our first kind of after show, and that really got this podcast like hit the ground running because it gave us something to talk about, right? Yeah. In a time where there was stuff going on, but it was like, this is the week to week substance that if I can't think of anything, this is just what we can deliver, right? Mm-hmm. And it was a great period of time to do that because the final season of Clone Wars hadn't come out yet. That would be season 7.
I didn't realize it was before that.
Yeah, so it actually worked really well in terms of timing and stuff, and that was sort of what gave the starting bump, getting the show going. And so huge thank you to those people that were friends of ours that have been kind of involved from the beginning,
and listeners that have stuck along this long.
Yeah, there's definitely 100%. I think there's listeners that have probably not missed a single episode since the start, right? And
we see you.
Yeah.
We see you out there.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, would it kill you to send an email in every now and again?
Leave a voicemail. Do you still do that?
No, we don't do the voicemail. Y'all never sent any voicemails.
Didn't get enough voicemails.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. Do you guys listen to podcasts? What kind of shows do you like listening to? Other than this one, of course.
Of course, listen to this one every week.
I only specifically listen to this podcast, but just cut out everyone else's voices and listen to my own. No, not
nice.
Quite. I tend to. I feel like nowadays, especially when I'm going on long drives, and if I ever need to wear headphones for a long period of time, I tend to always lean towards listening to podcasts over music, just because if you listen to the same music over and over again, you can kind of get a little bit sick of it. But at least with podcasts, you get to learn something, and it's like almost like you're with other people in the room, I guess. So yeah, I tend to listen to a lot more podcasts now than I did 5-6 years ago, but nothing, no topic too specific, I guess.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Usually, I don't know if I follow any dedicated podcasts, but I'll follow different topics I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And I watch a lot of long talk videos without watching the visuals, so it's basically listening to a podcast.
Fair enough.
For example, I'm a big fan of the Red Letter Media guys on YouTube. They're very funny.
Yeah.
So they do a lot of bad movie reviews and stuff. Kind of what's it called now? There's a name for like when you make fun of the movie while you're watching it. There's an old show. Yeah, Science Theater 2000, I think.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, and so I'll just listen to that while I'm working or whatever.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Some of the sub series we've done to try and kind of keep the content flowing, because obviously doing a podcast it can be difficult. It's a very niche subject. This is a weekly Star Wars podcast. Like and I get this question asked all the time. How do you have so much stuff to talk about every week? You know, like how can you talk about Star
We
Wars
can't
every
even
week?
keep up with it. That's the thing.
That's the truth. That's the truth. We can't even keep up with how much stuff actually does come out. Like if we were to throw every single comic book, novel, everything in there for review.
Oh man.
You kidding me, man? Like there's no way.
This would have to be a full-time job.
It would be. It could be.
I mean, I guess the other option would be to increase my reading level beyond the 3rd grade, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
I think that's probably a big reason to why a lot of Star Wars podcasts popped up after The Force Awakens. So between 2017 and 2018, just because there's so much more stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
And if you had a podcast between like 2005 to 2014, well, probably 2012, I guess you could say, there really wasn't as much to talk about.
Right.
just Clone Wars, really.
On a weekly basis, I guess.
Totally. Yeah. There was no Disney Plus. There was no weekly content. Like it was, and this is where I give major props to all of those Star Wars podcasts that kind of made it through that time. Like, I don't want to call it like a second Dark Times because I mean we did have Clone Wars every year for a while and there was other content like novels and stuff from Dark Horse and stuff like that, you know, after the prequels came out. But there was no big movies or anything. There was no big shows. Like, you know, we're so spoiled now with all this stuff on
Seriously.
You know, so much stuff, right?
I mean, even the time if people are recording stuff during the era of like the prequels, there wasn't really that much between the movies other than kids' novels,
Right.
And then
Yeah.
the original animated series, the Gendy Tarkovsky ones, which were quite short.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you know, we started this up like before the first season of Mandalorian came out. So we managed to. That was probably, other than Clone Wars talk, which was a sort of a rewatch for me and a first watch for Diego. The Mandalorian nights that we did for that first season was kind of a big jump as well. You know, in terms of trying to get the name of the podcast out there, people coming in, listening, hearing other people's opinions.
Actually, that was a really good springboard, wasn't it? Because it was a weekly thing and people were enjoying the series and
It was.
wanted to get more out of it.
Yeah, that was also right before episode 9 came out. So, and then episode 9 dropped, and then, you know, then we had kind of the flood. We had the announcement of Project Luminous or something like that. That was basically the High Republic code name that they were using for a while. And then we went ham on the Clone Wars talk because around that period of time, a couple months after episode 9 came out, that was when the pandemic hit. And just to get back to what Kirk was saying earlier about how we were doing recording in one room, right, with one microphone, the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden, like, I was scrambling because I was like, oh shoot, I live alone in a condo. This is at the time, at least. And like, how am I supposed to have people coming over to the house, like, you know, like to record these things, like on a microphone that I'm stringing all the way across the room from my computer? And like, I resorted to a site called Zencaster. And so that was Zencaster, which went free for podcast users during the pandemic period of time, and then some. You know, huge thanks to them because like they just kept it alive that entire time. And it's basically a cloud platform that everyone on their own end, kind of like a Zoom call, it gets locally recorded by their microphone, and then all the tracks kind of cloud sync and go to the cloud. So then the host can like download everyone's audio tracks at the end of it.
And they're individuals.
And they're all individuals.
You can edit them.
Exactly. Yeah, it was like editable. It was great. So I would say the majority of 2020, 2021, and maybe some of 2020. No, maybe not.
Was it that
2 years?
long?
No, 2 years, I think. 2020, 2021, maybe ish, maybe a year and a half. I don't know.
Kirk, were you around for that?
It's all a blur now.
Did you join Zencaster or just Discord?
I think it was always Discord. It was when maybe there was like a first episode or so.
That's
But
what
then
I'm
again,
wondering.
I think I joined around about May 2022. I think it was.
I think at that point we had the
Because-
Roadcaster.
Yeah,
then.
I mean,
I think at that point we had the Roadcaster then. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're right, Kirk. I think it was like 2022.
Even that's 2 years ago. Isn't that crazy?
because that was a long time.
doesn't
That's
feel
crazy.
like it.
Wow, that is crazy. I'm just looking it up now in the Star Wars podcast archives, and
It definitely would have been May 2022 because that was been the first year that Orbit Key did the Star Wars
Yes.
collaboration, which is obviously how you found me. And then
it was May 29th.
And then, it was 2 years since then.
May
Yeah,
May
Well, there you go,
29th.
a few weeks after the launch.
Yeah, May 29th, 2022, and it was for Obi-Wan Kenobi Part part 6. It's the final episode of Kenobi.
Oh wow!
And you were the special guest, and it was to help launch the orbit key stuff.
That's interesting. I would have thought it was a little bit earlier on, because that would have been the third launch that they did at the time, because the first collection was the one inspired by the 4 characters, and then that would have been a bit along the way. But there you go. That's why the archive is good, because my memory would have been the other way around.
Yeah. Well, I think we did help launch the first one, but I think this one. I think
More
the first.
official?
Yeah. Well, I think the product was for Kenobi and Vader. I think that stuff didn't come out until after the show was out for a while, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think when you came on as a guest, that was when the show was still actually coming out week to week. So that was when the Mandalorian stuff dropped, was when, ironically, when Kenobi was on Disney Plus. And then we had you on again for we had the Kenobi. With the Orbit Key and Trivia Night, that was later in the year, and I think that was for Kenobi and Vader stuff, and then the Retro Series the following 2023. So, yeah, a few times, man, that brings me back. Sorry, I lost track here.
We're talking about Zencaster.
Oh yeah, Zencaster. Yeah, so that was a hot minute. Our first special guest.
Didn't we only stop using it because you got a actual?
Yeah. So at some point it was basically a toss up when we got the Roadcaster to use, because this allowed recording remotely if I used another piece of equipment, which would be at this point, the laptop that we have here. But that pretty much, because everything records onto the Roadcaster, and this is the Roadcaster Pro, the first edition. Everything kind of comes through on separate channels. It's a bit like an audio mixer, but everything records to a micro SD card in this module, right? And I've got it set just to record all into one track. Yeah. The separate channels it's a bit of a mess and takes a longer process afterwards to kind of throw it all together. So we basically record this like a live show, sort of.
I know people are always surprised to hear that.
Yeah, all the sound effects and everything are driven completely on the soundboard.
Liar!
That was the incorrect sound effect to use.
You just undermine your own, like yourself there.
Yeah.
A surprise to be sure, but a welcome one.
But yeah, so like it's all driven on the board, and then we do a little bit of processing afterwards and chop out dead air and whatever, but not too harsh, right? And then it just gets uploaded from there. So it's a bit of a streamlined process, but it really sort of almost forced me to cut out the Zencaster middleman. And this was conveniently around the same time that Zencaster was going back to being a paid option, and so from there. Boosted our Discord server so that we had a better quality audio channel, and then we were using Discord as a kind of a streaming sort of solution, to get that audio into the Roadcaster, and then we record locally on this module. So if the power goes out, we're kind of screwed, because then the whole thing shuts down.
Would you be able to keep
The whole system goes down.
Yes, that's right.
Everything we've recorded so far, though, if the power went out, you get to keep it? Is it like store as it's recording?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
There might
you
be.
wouldn't lose everything.
I've
There's
never
no post.
I hope it wouldn't corrupt the track. But yeah, I would imagine it just cuts off, and then we'd have to record a new segment. But Yeah, so first special guest ever was Dominic Pace. He was an actor on The Mandalorian. He played the bounty hunter Gecko.
Oh, I remember this guy.
Yeah.
Because he was supposed to be a background character.
Yeah, he was a background character.
Was Favreau liked him? Maybe it's Filoni. I think
he
it was
went
Favreau,
in
though.
for a makeup test or something like that.
Yeah, and they liked his looks. They brought him up front.
Yeah, they liked his looks. They gave him the job, to be in the costume and stuff, or something like that. I forget exactly.
I thought they moved him closer to camera. Essentially, made him more of a main character instead of just a random background guy.
I think Dominic's done that himself. He's really proud about his work on the show. So he's been on so many Star Wars podcasts at this point, and he's pretty active with kind of signing fan art.
I was saying he's gonna be doing some signings in the upcoming expo here in Vancouver.
I don't know, maybe, but I know that he's a bit like he reminded me a little bit of how Mark Anthony, I think is his name. He's a guy on Twitter he used to work for ILM, and he was the guy who I think he was an animator on like a couple of Disney animation films like Treasure Planet and a bunch of stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and he played Boba Fett in the ILM reshoots for the special edition releases
In the 90s.
in the 90s. Yeah, so he's like the Boba Fett guy that walks past camera in
Right.
episode 4
Yeah.
with
When
Jabba
they
the
added
Hutt.
him in. Yeah.
Yeah, they comped him in there and stuff. Yeah, so
When he like
he's that
walks,
guy.
then he does a quick look to the left.
Yeah.
And then he walks away off camera.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Kirk, you remember that scene?
I honestly, I don't. I'm gonna have to look this up.
It's
Okay.
right after Han Solo stomps on Jabba's tail.
Yeah, you know.
Wait, hang on a second. Is this in the special edition, like
Yes.
the 90s or the
Yeah,
2000s remake?
97,
Right.
I
Okay.
think, yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking
If
about.
you watch the movie right now on Disney Plus, it'll be there. Like they've left it in all it's like a
That whole scene is
it's like a snowman, you know, like every single version it's been added to
just melts a bit more.
They always add more stuff. Like George never took anything
Right,
out. He's
right.
always added.
They just put more
like-
on top.
Yeah. I think the only thing they chopped out was like an Ewok song in episode 6. That's the only thing that's missing.
Well, they
Like,
replaced it with a new one.
still, it was replaced. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but
mostly.
that was I think more to do with John Williams. I think. than George.
Yeah, maybe it was John Williams' thing. He's like,
Maybe
yeah.
the whole thing was John Williams.
Hey George, the song at the end of the your third film sucks. I want to do a different one.
I changed my mind. Does he have a southern accent?
He's got a very soft voice.
Okay.
I don't know
You
if
make him sound like he's from Texas.
that was definitely not my intention.
Anyway,
jeez.
moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
You are forgetting one other guest appearance. We also have Dave Filoni come on every once in a while.
That's true.
Oh, that's true.
And George as well.
Yeah, George, Dave. Yeah, they come on every now and
Never
again.
had,
In fact,
Favreau.
he was in my favorite episode where we had some technical issues with drawing the winner for a certain giveaway a few years ago.
You're right.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every year that this show has kind of gone on, there's always been some sort of expansion, some sort of addition that I've tried to have us tried to make, whether it's been, a new logo to make certain things possible, to launching you were a big advocate for the YouTube channel option.
Yeah. It's just another place to find it.
Yeah, so that took a lot of work because I went back and I think at the point where I started doing all the conversions, it was like 250 episodes or something like that. It was something around there.
Yeah, we back uploaded all of them.
Every single one.
Well,
My
you did
my
most
computer
of it.
for
I did, like,
most
4.
all of like 3 months, I think it was. Like, yeah, it was just one after the next, just constantly downloading the published episode, running it through a video loop that I made with a waveform effect to apply to each episode uniquely, and then uploading that to YouTube. And of course, that process takes friggin' long time, right? And then that was just one by one, right?
We got lucky that Disney put out that the random back like screensaver videos.
Oh yeah, the
The fly-throughs.
yeah.
Yeah, we were so excited for those until they came out. And we're like, oh,
Yeah, like I was
I
like,
don't know. I just expected something fancier.
yeah, I was like, what the heck are these?
Yeah,
It's like,
it was really random.
yeah, they're just like moving wallpapers.
I think because they kind of made it sound like it was going to be almost like a mockumentary,
Yeah, it definitely did sound like there was gonna be like,
like an in Star Wars.
yeah, we're
documentary.
talking about the Disney Plus Star Wars biomes.
That's what it's
called.
called.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I thought like, oh hey, it'll be like
Oh,
National
right.
Geographic, but
Yeah.
but Star Wars. And,
Yeah, exactly. So instead of learning about a ferret, we would learn about like
a porg
tauntauns.
or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, and it ended up just being
And it ended up just being wallpapers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean,
it ended up just-
we got used for them in the end, so that's the main
Yeah,
thing.
Yeah,
probably
exactly.
got more use out of it than anyone else at Disney Plus.
yeah, hear that, Disney? Ended up not being a piece of crap. Well, yeah, we ended up using it in all our YouTube videos. So, have fun trying to remove all those because now there's like 310. But yeah, if you look through the window of the escape pod in our YouTube versions, you got little glimpses through the window of the escape pod, of just the different planets. So, I feel like I actually put some good use to their biomes project because
Yeah, it worked
otherwise
out
it would have
really
been
well.
really useless. Like, who the heck watches biomes?
It'd make a really good screensaver. I will say that. I think
Yeah.
that'd be the next most useful thing.
Yeah. So, respect for biomes.
Yeah. I mean, for all we know, someone was just doing that like at Lucasfilm or whatever on the side for a fun
Yeah.
project. And Disney's like, yeah, let's put it up there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's cool. But okay, yeah, and then we did. We did the YouTube launch. We done the Discord launch. At one point, we launched. Of course, the Twitter came. That was one of the first things. And eventually we'll launch the Instagram, rest in peace, because most recently news going forward is our Instagram got nailed for not being a person, and
Don't
therefore
companies have Instagrams?
yes, and that's kind of the stupidest part. Was for some reason it just wasn't good enough that we were listed as a podcast called Star Wars Escape Pod, because the message that I got from this takedown of our threads and Instagram profile was that it had to do with identity of who we were, right? Authenticity of identity. I was like, okay, what's not true about any of this? Like, so I was really confused, but I'm not a big Instagram fan in the first place. So I was actually more.
Were you able to fight back with Instagram to get it back, or they just didn't?
I did. So I got an email with a button to click saying that it's like basically a dispute button. It was like a singular thing where I could click it and it would be like, okay, our team is going to review this and make a decision. 10 minutes later, I get another email saying like, our team reviewed your stuff and have determined that the claim still stands or whatever, something like that. And then I was completely.
So the negotiations were short.
The negotiations were short. Yeah. And yeah, it ended up just being like, what? Like, what the heck? So stupid, such a waste of time. And in that time, I couldn't like log in to see if there was any further things that I could do to keep it alive. But anyway, I've never been an Instagram fan anyways. Like, I've never really cared that much, and I was never really put in a huge amount of effort to maintaining that. But miraculously, we had like 100 and something followers. So sorry to all you guys who are following the Instagram, but that and the threads will no longer be a thing, only because there was pretty much no possible way for me to do that unless I use a different email, and I'm just not willing to do that. So unless they just decide to
we'll
give
have
it
to
back.
Outlook the Outlook email.
That's right.
Yeah, believe it or not, I think I do have the credentials for that. I never shut it down, but yeah. So what are some podcast stories that we have? I don't know, like Blake, maybe you can kick us off. Do you have any good Star Wars podcast stories? Any good memories from doing this podcast?
Oh, they're all good memories, Josh.
All good memories. When did you first come on, and when did you first start doing this? I think it was when we started doing the commentary tracks, right?
It was after Clone Wars for sure.
Yeah. Clone Wars talk ended, and then we did our 1 year anniversary, and then we started doing commentary tracks. Phantom Menace commentary track. That was 2020, September 2nd.
2020.
Yeah, 2020. So 3 years ago, technically, almost 4.
Yeah, 3.5-ish.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
Pretty nuts, right? Yeah.
I mean, the whole section of pandemic is basically just a big blur. So.
Yeah, and then we went into Mandalorian season 2.
Yeah.
And
did we not do? So was I not there for Mando season 1?
No, you may have had a guest appearance at one point. I can't remember.
Interesting. I thought I would have been there for that.
And then we started up the Lightspeed. So that's when Lightspeed issue number 1. That was December 9th, 2020, and that's been an ongoing sub series ever since. Or once in a while, I'll just have the mic for myself and kind of do a 15-minute Star Wars headlines thing. That's usually kind of helps buffer out. It gives us a week to like take a break. Mm-hmm. Just sort of catches up relevance of Star Wars headlines on the podcast that we just don't get to week because we're so busy doing other stuff. So I found it's kind of a useful thing to do every now and again. So we just released the 31st one 2 weeks ago, January 29th.
I think I'd say my highlights for me are probably when we get to talk with other Star Wars fans and have guests on.
Yeah.
It's really great, like talking with Jess, and we just had Molly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
Kyle.
Is you Kirk?
Yeah, Kirk.
Yeah, Kyle's a good one.
Kyle, yeah, Kirk, Kyle, and
we interviewed the guy from High Republic.
Yeah, and
I actually wasn't here for that one.
Yeah, Jason Eaton, the model maker.
That's right.
Who did the Starlight Beacon model? Yeah, we've had
the Bucketheads.
Bucketheads guys.
Bucketheads, yeah. I was just about to say that.
Yeah. Kirk, you listened to that one, right?
That was a great episode. I loved and there's so much you learn about the process of behind making a Star Wars fan film from it. So that was definitely a highlight episode.
Totally. We're about to have another special guest on soon as well for a short film called Star Wars Bright Star, and that one's going to be pretty cool to listen to as well. So feel free to come on, Kirk.
Here's an odd topic question. Do you think that Lucasfilm should do their own short film festival, but just for Star Wars fan films? I feel like
they used to.
Will never do that, especially nowadays.
Yeah, they used to do that.
But I feel like they won't bring it back.
Yeah, they got rid of it. They got too many Jar Jar videos.
Probably. I can't watch another Jar Jar video. There's so many.
The last one they did was 2017, I think.
It's up to them. Man. Yeah, it's up to them to like to choose what gets shown. But I have a feeling there's a growing sentiment, I guess, that they feel that a lot of fans are saying that the fan films are better than the in-house made stuff. So maybe that
They're
could be a
scared
reason.
to. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
But I don't know. I feel like Star Wars fan films have been a thing for a long time.
Yeah.
Was that the first time they ever did a competition for it?
No,
Or was
they've done when George was running the company. I think they had a fan films awards every now and again. But
Okay.
but
So
yeah,
maybe it's a Disney thing.
I think Disney started to shut it down. Yeah, because I think it gets a little too politically kind of
Right.
contradictive with their use of the IP because they're not a big fan of allowing
Yeah,
public use of
that's-
Star Wars stuff.
That's kind of what I thought it was.
Whereas like
too.
George
They're
just
more-
didn't really seem
Yeah,
to care.
probably.
They're more
True.
protective of the IP.
Yeah, for sure.
George was.
Disney is more protective than George ever was. Yeah.
I guess it sets up precedent as well for all their other IP.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, the big hits on the block.
We could
out
get
of
a
it.
Steamboat Willie horror slasher movie
Well,
this year. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Are you saying that because that's coming out?
Yeah, Steamboat Willie lost its.
we
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
the one thing you can do now because it's
Yeah.
public domain.
Can you imagine when Star Wars gets in the public domain? That's gonna suck.
Because what
Oh, that would be wild.
It would either
That'd be
suck
awful.
or be amazing.
what are the rules? I'm trying to remember.
Wait, it's just like you can use
Yeah,
it. So,
sorry. I mean, like, what's the age? I can't remember how long it is before something.
oh, it's like 100
It's
years.
100
It's
years.
100.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be. I guess technically
2077.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I might live to see that day.
Man, it'll be such a different world by then, though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It'll be.
Remember in Star Wars Episode 19 when Han
Yeah.
Solo was resurrected?
Yeah, exactly.
That was a great one.
Yeah.
That was so.
Yeah.
That was remind me of the original trilogy days.
Yeah. The Last Jedi will be a timeless classic.
It'll no longer be the last Jedi. It'll just be another Jedi.
Yeah. The next Jedi.
That's right.
So stupid. Okay, yeah. So some of the good memories that I have also, talking with so many awesome guests. And we had the Supreme Emperor from Wikipedia
That's
come on.
right. Yeah,
That was a great one too. Yeah, and
was fun.
I'm leaving out quite a few, just not out of
We're just going off the top of our head here. We don't have a list.
There's
so if we're
there's so
missing
many.
people, apologies.
Yeah, for
we
sure.
enjoyed chatting with everybody.
Everybody. Yeah, absolutely. But and some of the sub series that we've done also very, very exciting. I think some of the best memories for me is not just special guests, but whenever we get like a series of things to do something on, that always it's always a good memory for me because I'm looking at this spreadsheet for the Star Wars Podcast Archives, and we've got after shows ever since Mandalorian season 1 for all of those shows. I'm seeing like Bad Batch reviews, Andor. We did all those Andor ones with Kirk, and we've got the Kenobi on there, Book of Boba. Tales of the Jedi, so much stuff going all the way back to Clone Wars talk and commentary tracks. There's so much stuff going on.
I got a question. What's going to be our turnaround for a gap of time before we redo commentary tracks?
Well, we've never done commentary tracks for like any of the live action shows. So like I think that'll be kind of the
that's
next
true.
the next
Yeah,
possibility.
we've just done the films.
Yeah.
Do commentary track for all the seasons of Clone Wars.
Maybe we'll do like 5-year anniversary commentary track.
We should do a commentary track for Resistance.
Oh shoot, no.
No, even better. We should do a commentary track on that one Bad Batch episode with like the ocean, the tsunami.
Pabu.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it's the episode called Pabu. Yeah.
Pablo.
No, Pabu. Hey, that was another new
Season
thing.
2 or is it season 3?
Oh, that was season 2. Pabu. Pabu was yeah.
It's just your
Yeah,
favorite
Pabu.
one.
That's right.
Yeah, I just remember it like it's stuck in such a bad way. I remember it the episode by name, and it's just Pabu, and it's a
Was
Pabu.
I remember you didn't like it because nothing happened. for
It was
most of
just
it.
so bad, man. It was just like there was nothing.
It was supposed to be showing them enjoying life, like if they stayed there, like they could finally relax.
That's because they
not be a
get there.
war.
It's the lead up. It's the
Yeah.
build up that you get through the whole season, and then they get to this place, and they're like, you know what? Yeah, this is it. This is the life. And then the stupid kids go out on the water, and then it happens to be like the first day in like 1,000 years that a tsunami comes
Yeah,
and it wipes out freaking everything,
entire-
right?
yeah.
And then they're like, oh shoot, I guess we got nowhere to go again. And
So
it
might as
just
well go back to war.
reminds me so much of just like the poor soul down on his luck that thinks he's won the lottery that one day, and then it just like the ticket just blows out of his hand and goes down a toilet or something like
Right.
it was
picked up by a squirrel.
Yeah, I mean the analogy's funnier than the actual episode because the actual episode sucked. But you know, I'm
Definitely
I was about
remember
to say
it more than others.
you just described the episode like really well. I was like, wow, that's a pretty great explanation for an episode. I thought like remember watching it. I was like, what on earth just happened? Like nothing,
nothing, dude. Nothing happened. That was the whole like point of the episode, which is just the funniest thing because it was so bad. Like I can't begin to tell you how bad it really was. You got to watch it again so that you can.
It's one of the few I remember. I remember that one
because it was so bad.
Maybe
it was the only.
It was
thing,
very different than all the other episodes.
It was one of the few things I've ever given 3 Pablo Pudus. And if anyone's familiar with our rating system on the podcast, whenever we do an after show or whenever we have to rate something, it's always a scale out of 7. It's always 3 Pablo Pudus. There's the worst of the worst of the worst. And then moving up from there, you got 2 Pablo Pudus, 1 Pablo Pudu, and then a Bendu. Bendu is a 50% score. It's like iffy. And then you get Pablo points, named after Pablo Hidalgo himself. You got 1 Pablo point, 2 Pablo points, and then 3 Pablo points. Not Pabu points, Pablo points. And that's 3 Pablo points is the best of the best of the best. So, you know.
So you gave 3 Pudu points for Pabu.
I gave
That's
3
right.
Pablo Pudus.
Pudus.
Yes.
Yeah.
3 Pablo Pudus.
Pablo Pudus for
It's
Pudus.
always, yeah.
Drop 3
yeah.
big old poodoos.
There's Pablo points and Pablo Pudus. Actually, it's just I shorten it to Pudus because Pablo Pudus and Pablo points would be a bit of a mouthful. But
I still use it. I think it's hilarious.
yeah. It's funny to picture Pablo Puduing on it. Stuff like, you know.
I'm so glad you did my addition of adding the Jar Jar on the side there, doing the P-USA.
Yeah. In our Discord, we got a picture under the. I think you can see it, Kirk. If you click on the guest README channel, there's a image at the bottom there with the scale, and there's like a Jar Jar on the left side. I don't know if you
Plug in
see
his
it.
nose. Yeah. P-USA.
P-USA. Oh man.
Oh, we should probably get that on the soundboard too.
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. One of the last things I just want to hit before we like hit some headlines. I know, Kirk, you don't have all night. How much more time do you got?
I've got probably 5-10.
5-10. All right. Sweet. So other than Molly's Galactic Star Cruise episode, we dropped Lightspeed number 31. We did a Lego Star Wars looking back from 99 to 2015 and beyond with Guess the Price game. That was fun to do. Mm-hmm. We had Star Wars Effect on Culture with our special guest Darian, another special guest I forgot to mention. Another special guest, Adam Braverman. And we did how the Dark Horse forged
that was a
the
good
EU.
one.
Adam put so much research into this episode.
Yeah,
he was
that was a
a
great episode.
superstar, and it was a full look back at the 90s. So thank you again, Adam, for putting all that together. That was amazing. And then there was the Star Wars Reads episode that was with our friend Francis. He was I should special guest him on there. I don't think I have the name on the title. Sorry, Francis. We got Star Wars Reads the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That was kind of fun. We just chatted for an hour about Star Wars books.
There's
you
a
know.
lot to go into, especially even just talking about the Disney era of novels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's like a 50-hour topic.
Yeah, so those are all the recent episodes from this past year so far. You know, all the ones in January and early Feb. What we have coming up, other than Star Wars Podcast Day for this episode, we have the Star Wars Bright Star fan film interview, special guest. We also have the Bad Batch after show coming up as well, starting with the first 3 episodes after show in one day, because all those come out on the same day, and then the rest of the season goes on week to week after that, all the way up until the end of March. And I think at some point we'll try and squeeze in what happened with Asajj Ventress. I'm just not sure if we'll have the time to do that before the Bad Batch. It might make sense to do it after, just so that people can, so that we can see what
She's
happens.
in the trailer.
She's in the trailer, yeah,
Sorry,
and
spoilers,
I don't
anyone
know
hasn't seen
when
it.
that piece of story takes place. That's the thing.
Right.
So like, it might be better to do it afterwards, just so people might be wanting to kind of hear the whole story like after watching Bad Batch season 3. Yeah, there we have it. That's all the recent stuff. And I don't know, Kirk, I know you don't have too much time. Do you have any lingering questions you have, like how we do anything here?
If you were a non,
I've always
what would you ask?
if I was a non-podcaster, what if let's say if someone was starting a Star Wars or any other podcast today, what would be your main word of advice, whether it comes from like a technicality standpoint or how you can differentiate your podcast from all the thousands of other ones that are out there?
Yeah, I would say
Streamline as much as you can.
definitely. That's a great piece of advice.
Burnout is your biggest enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this isn't our full-time job, right? Like we definitely we have other jobs that we do, but like this is for
This
fun.
isn't a job. We don't get paid.
No, yeah,
This is just something we do.
yeah, this is
We've
just a hobby, right? So like, I mean, yeah, burnout's a big one, but also I think like what I would throw in there is like keep it unique, because there is so many Star Wars podcasts out there. Like, don't just listen to one of them and go, I'm gonna make one that sounds like that, right? Maybe like take a couple of ideas from various different formats, throw it into your own blender, and see what you come up with, right? And like I remember doing the intro was supposed to be temporary, using the theme song for the I'm Han Solo.
Right.
Like that
From
is
the Connect game.
Yeah, from the Star Wars Connect game. And you know, that was something that sort of, I was like, you know what, I'll just throw that in there as just like kind of a temp thing.
Oh man.
And it ended up
I
sticking.
remember, yeah,
right?
because even in high school we were making fun of that. It was awful.
Yeah, and it wasn't copied from anyone, and you know, it's not like we own the song, like anyone can use it, but it was just like I had never heard a Star Wars podcast that had used it yet, so I was like, you know what, yeah, we'll just throw that in there for now, and maybe I'll come up with something later down the road with the audition mix that I was doing, and it ended up just sticking. And I was like, okay, well, this
5
is
years later
become part of the identity, right? Like it's those mishaps that become identity for the show and that become something unique, right? So like I think like Kirk, like you content create yourself, like, you know, so like I'm sure you can kind of relate to that sort of, you know, what can I do to make my thing unique, you know, compared to somebody else who does the same thing, right?
Yeah, I think like you definitely hit the nail on the head there. I think making sure you streamline everything to make it as easy as possible for you to make the content that you want to put out. But of course, I think a lot of people will feel like they need to adopt a new persona or filter themselves as a person when they're making something to put online for people to see. But I think it's what makes you unique is what will make the whole podcast or whatever you make shine through and make it different from other people's that are out there. But also, I think it's also cool to come up with ideas for different guests, different topics, and other actual technical different things that differentiate yourself from the ones that are out there too. So
Right. Exactly. Well, I've got a whole list here of 20, and I don't want to get into all this because I know you don't have all night, Kirk, but there's a whole list of 20 reasons why a podcast can succeed or fail. And just in short, it comes down to 4 categories. Sorry, my miscounted there. I'm not stupid.
5 categories.
Content, production, promotion / marketing, and monetization and sustainability. Now I'm just going to change that last one to
any business.
Yeah, sort of. And I'm just going to change that last one to sustainability because, you know, this is not a monetized podcast. Like there's no ads that we run, anything like that. Any kind of like product related subject has always been, it's Star Wars related. It's something that I would want to hear about, you know, as a Star Wars fan.
So you're saying that this next Force Friday or whatever it is, May the 4th.
Do you remember that one May the 4th?
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing this up.
A 45-minute advert.
You announced literally everything they were selling for May the 4th.
Yeah.
It was like a 10-minute monologue of sales.
But none of it was paid for, which is the most important part.
Yeah, exactly. None of it was paid for. It's all just, you know, hey, this is Star Wars, you know, related.
I think I can be the best person to attest to this because I remember when you were reading out some of the promos for the Orbit Key collaboration with Star Wars. I remember listening to you one time being like, "Oh wait, Orbit Key is doing that deal. That's pretty good," and I completely forgot about it. And then you done your research and knew what the sales were.
That's amazing. That's so good. Thank you for that. I'm gonna remember that.
The company forgot.
Yeah, those 4 things though are just kind of key to keep in mind when it comes to the content. That's something like you got to find your target audience, you got to find your subject, the consistency, the evolution, the concept of the show. Everything has to work for you, right? Whatever you're making, you know, if you're making a Star Wars podcast out there, you know, make sure that you take that and, you know, make it yours, you know, put in your own, like I intentionally, and I was telling you this, Kirk, like I don't watch or listen to other Star Wars content creators anymore because I just can't, like, I don't want to take their opinions and make them my opinions.
Yeah, I was worried about that too. So I don't follow them much either. Unless
Yeah.
there's something really big.
That's interesting.
You see the news.
Yeah, unless there's something really big. Like I don't do the week-to-week videos. Like every now and again, I'll see one that like somebody does, like Alex from Star Wars Explained or whoever, like, you know, and I'll be like, oh, that's cool. Like maybe I'll check that out. But I don't actively like follow their stuff. And
yeah, I'm always worried about parroting too.
Yeah, and less so because, you know, a couple of years ago, but at least before we started doing this podcast, I would be definitely a lot more frequent with watching and listening to that stuff. So
yeah, you watch this Rebels after show every week, like the Star Wars show. You send me links all the time, and I watch maybe 1 in 10.
Yeah.
I remember you were a very avid follower of the Star Wars YouTube channel.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's probably a good thing though, because I definitely found when I used to watch a lot more Star Wars YouTube content, and I've dialed it back a lot now, and not for any particular reason, just because of time. I feel like that when I do watch these shows and movies and everything else, I have my own opinion versus I feel it does get like in the back of your head, like if you're watching a lot of stuff, it can get meddled with, and when you hear, especially if it's negativity, I find.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
It's probably a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna wrap up this list after we exit you out, Kirk. I know you got to go, so thanks so much for popping on again, and I guess we'll catch you in the next one for another Pabu, another bad batch.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to another episode of that. The cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Catch you later.
See you, Kirk.
Thanks, all. Bye bye.
Yeah. All right, so our next category out of the 4 is production, audio quality, presentation, editing, music, technical aspects. I think we ran through a lot of these tonight, just in passing, talking about our own show. Audio quality, though, is kind of a nice one to hit, because I feel like the way that you mentioned how we started with the one mic in the one room.
Yeah, the classic first episode.
Yeah, going up from there, now we got like a dedicated room in my place that we got, 3 local mics. We got some comfortable furniture in here. We just kind of hang out. Like, it's certainly got to a point of quality where now you can hear the improvement, right?
Yeah.
And it's just little
things.
things.
This is also after several years of investing time.
Yeah, for sure.
So we didn't spend a bunch of money, do 3 episodes, and then never do it again.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just something that, a lot of people will maybe a lot of YouTubers can also probably kind of comment on this particular process. But, don't go ham on the equipment. If you're starting your own show or whatever, don't go ham on the equipment before you start the show, right? Like, I bought one microphone, so that we could just kind of get some sort of sound going, something that wouldn't sound like absolute garbage, but something that was like, all right.
For
like,
me, early on, you wanted me to join specifically because I had a nice mic, because I bought it for
oh, right. Yeah.
home videos, ADRing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You already had the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we might have even used it at one point for a group recording.
I think we did it for the jar. Yeah, there was the Jar Jar video. Yeah.
No, I thought we used it for the podcast. I thought I brought it and you used it.
Oh, maybe
at your house, at your apartment. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely one thing to keep in mind is audio quality doesn't always necessarily have to matter at the beginning. Like, just get something going out of habit, and as you kind of fall in love with the process of like making more stuff for your own project, inevitably you'll want to kind of more so invest the money into the equipment that makes it even better, right? And investing money into making something sound super good and then uploading it to the internet isn't going to be instant success, and people aren't just going to listen to it because it sounds great, right? People got to like you, and people got to like the stuff that you're talking about. And we just do it for fun. So like, quite frankly, like, I don't think any of us really cares too much as to just how like dialed in everything go. Like, we keep it pretty authentic here, and
that's true.
we really appreciate everybody tuning in always, all the time.
I feel like that. But also, we're talking to someone who listened to the podcast, and their thoughts on it were, it just feels like everyone kind of hanging out, just chatting about Star Wars. Which is what we're doing. We're literally just getting together and chatting about what we love.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of what keeps it sort of special and unique in my own head as well. And also, it makes it such a great memory every time we do this, because it allows to it provides a platform that people are so happy to connect. And like when we were chatting with Molly, the most recent experience in my head, where she was just so thankful for the platform, providing the platform for her to just talk about her experience with Galactic Star Cruiser. And it's just like, what? Yeah, I'm so happy that not only like that's something that she's able to recognize. I know Kyle's mentioned that too. When he's come on, and him and Alex, chatting about their lightsabers, and I think Adam mentioned it too, and Dan's mentioned it. It's mentioned it in more than one way. It's like, hey, you know what? This is cool. Like, we just kind of hang out. We talk about something that we all love, something that we can all appreciate, and that's all it is, right?
Yeah, it's all comes down to hanging out and sharing passion.
Yeah, exactly. And and that's sort of I think where the real quality comes in. Not necessarily the way it sounds, but it's just the genuine sort of heart behind it, right? Is all there. So I think that's what keeps this special. Every now and again.
I like to think so.
Yeah. That leads me into the third thing, promotion and marketing. And in this list that Google Bard typed out for me, I used an AI to come up with this list. The guest appearances are in that subject as well, and having people on like that, it really does help kind of drive interest that other parties, other people that wouldn't necessarily tap on Clone Wars Talk Part 40 or Rebels Talk Part 17 or Mandalorian After Show or even Bad Batch, right? Like Bryce, our buddy Bryce, he doesn't even watch the animated stuff technically.
Not normally.
Not normally. Like,
because he's same.
and he
age as me.
loves Star
Yeah.
Wars. He's a big Star Wars fan.
Oh,
It's just animation. Star Wars is not really his thing.
It was an age thing too, right? So he actually likes the Genndy Tartakovsky animated series. But him and I are both of the age category where Clone Wars was coming out right as we were kind of in like mid to late high school.
Yeah.
So we weren't really the target audience. I wasn't watching a lot of animated shows then, except
Yeah.
for maybe The Simpsons.
Right. Yeah, it's
That's
just
a big part of it, I think. But he and I are both the type of people where we'd be getting all of our friends together with our lightsabers and going to the local park and having a massive duel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. He's Star Wars, fan to the core. Just because someone like him doesn't necessarily like watching shows, he's not going to be the first one tuning into the Bad Batch on Disney Plus. I don't.
For some reason, he really likes that new one.
Tales of the Jedi.
Tales of the Jedi Younglings or something. Jedi Youngling Adventures.
Oh, Young Jedi Adventures.
That's
Yeah.
the one.
Yeah, I think he does love that. Yeah.
Yeah, he won't stop talking about it.
But yeah, like I don't question his fandom whatsoever. But it's funny whenever we do the Ultimate Star Wars trivia. Round 2 always gives him a bit of a hard time because that's all animation stuff.
I feel like that would make good content though, because like I feel like you and I for the Bad Batch coming up, because we know he's not the biggest fan.
Yeah.
So at least there'd be. The problem is we're all pretty big fans, and I feel like we agree a lot.
Yeah.
So it could make good conversation.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, going back to the guest appearances stuff, it helps drive people that normally wouldn't kind of tap on certain subjects, right? And then it's like, oh, special guest. Maybe they recognize the name. Maybe they know who it is. Maybe the topic that person has to their voice to add, has some sort of interest for that person, right? And most recently, I threw the Galactic Star Cruiser episode into a Discord server for people who are very avidly going to what do you call it, Galaxy's Edge in Disney World. There's a whole dedicated Discord server for like meetups and
cool,
buying stuff from people that go to the parks all the time, all that kind of thing. And so I was like, oh, this is a great area to put it out there. So that's why I put a link. And
you got banned from Discord for advertising.
they initially the admin team there was, because I filled out a form ages ago, so I thought I had the permissions to do it, and then I guess I didn't. So they took it down.
Yeah.
No, they were pretty good about it. They sent me the link again to fill out a form, and then by the next day I was all approved. So
Gotcha. Okay.
so it's up there now. But yeah, sorry guys. But yeah, it was cool because like that community of people there is a great group of people that would find interest in listening to someone like Molly, who's worked on a Disney World experience and stuff. So people that might not necessarily care about the rest of the stuff that we talk about, but then they'll see someone like Molly come on the show and be like, oh hey, like that interests me.
Yeah,
that's
it's
cool.
a topic that's specifically relevant to what.
Yeah, it also keeps the sound kind of interesting, right? Because I mean, like I don't think I would want to listen to a podcast with just my voice on it every single week. That would suck. Like
Depends
that's
if you're
what
a narcissist.
I mean, I'll do the Lightspeed episodes on my own because those are just 15 minutes. They got to be quick. But like it's so nice to have like you here, and I mean people like Kirk and Dan and Darian and whoever else coming on all the time. Bryce, Phil, Tyler, Kyle. Like we got so many people coming on all the time, right? And without everyone who is so willing to come on here, all the special guests, all our friends out there that have come on in the past. Without all those people, it would be such a bland show, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so like that's really its own sort of promotional and market. It keeps it interesting, keeps it colorful, and I think that's what I like the most about, having people on. It's like it's given us a platform to be able to connect with people that we wouldn't normally have a reason to talk to. And that's sort of been the highlight for me.
Yeah. Okay. Because I think of people that we would like to talk to, because just in anything Star Wars, talk to anybody. This is really fun learning a lot of the stuff and people's experiences and their niches and stuff and things that they figured out.
Yeah.
But now we have an excuse to talk to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's a label. Now there's a foundation. Now if anyone asks, it's like, oh, you got, over 300 episodes under your belt. Like, yeah, cool. Like that's
so crazy to me.
it kind of, yeah, and it adds to the legitimacy, I think, of doing, even though it's just, you know, it's legit the first day it's made as it is right now, but now there's some experience there. Now there's some, you know, longevity to recognition. That's like, as time's gone by, more and more people have come to know this podcast and come to recognize it. And we've never once in 310 or 11 episodes now, however long it's been, never once really talked about this podcast as its entity. As, you know, we've never done that. We've always talked about, it's always been about Star Wars. Yeah. So like for Star Wars podcast day, and you know, maybe we've lost a lot of people at this point in the episode, but I mean, like for Star Wars podcast day, I just thought it provided a window of opportunity. Instead of doing the annual trivia thing that we normally do, it provides an opportunity for us to just talk about kind of how, why, a little more meta. Yeah, a little more meta as to like just hanging out. Let's just talk about this podcast. You know, I got a few notes, but it's not scripted. And that leads me into the last subject, sustainability, long-term vision, passion, adaptability, and of course the monetizational things, which I'll only briefly talk about after all that stuff. But long-term vision for any podcast it can be overwhelming, because first off, it's like, how long am I going to do this, right? And if it's a hobby, you don't just pick up a hobby and go, how long am I going to do this? You know, if you're looking at a set of expensive golf clubs and you like golfing, but you're not really sure, am I committed to the sport that I want to buy into these new golf clubs or not?
Yeah, which can be tough, because you might have that spur of the moment passion thinking, but long term, maybe you lose interest, maybe there's something else you want to do instead.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, like, I think what's important for a lot of people is just to kind of, you know, just, is it something that you're excited about? And, you know, if so, it probably means that it's worth picking up those golf clubs. It's probably worth, you know, like putting your passion into it, because, you know, if it's something that you like, that you're happy to talk about or happy to do, you know, who's to tell you otherwise, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's pretty, honestly, it is a pretty low barrier to entry now. As we were saying earlier, I wouldn't start by going out and spending a bunch of money.
Right.
I would just get some friends together, just use headset mics or whatever you got.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's people that do that. There's people on YouTube that have podcasts that get more views than our YouTube, because we have YouTube conversions for all our episodes now. And like, they're kind of peanuts in terms of views, because I think, you know, most of our listeners, you know, choose Spotify or a different avenue to listen to it audibly, but the YouTube video versions get, you know, diddly squat in terms of attention. And then there'll be a video that I'll watch with just a bunch of people on a webcam, all with their headsets and everything, you know, with triple, if not like 100 times more views on their episode. And, you know, it's just like, whoa, okay, well, they clearly have found their audience. But it, like, you know, they don't need any crazy home studio to run their show. Like, they're doing just fine. You know, they do it all with headset mics. People go there because they want to see what they have to say. They've got their own level of passion for whatever niche that they're talking about. You know, it's good. So yeah, passion's a really important thing. Passion.
That's right.
The Anakin would say. Well,
in this case, it won't lead you to the dark side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Through passion, our chains are broken.
Right.
Wait, that's the Sith code.
You're right. The red is bringing out the dark side in us. Long-term vision, because we have our Star Wars podcast, like, I think it's pretty clear what's going to be about next week, the week after that, and the week after that, right? Like, it's a Star Wars based show. It's going to be about something Star Wars, which doesn't really make the subject material of this podcast very flexible, but
true,
but it does make it very wide. It gives us a wide spectrum, wide berth for all, you know, all of the existing content that's out there. You know, not to quote, I don't want to like throw Kathleen Kennedy under the bus when it comes to like not recognizing all the existing material. Do you remember when that happened? It was like,
when they got rid of the EU.
No, there was some quote out there which was like making headlines about how there's like nothing to reference
compared
or
to
something.
Marvel.
Yeah. There's no source material, something like that. So, you know, like, obviously that's not true. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of books comic books, everything. There's so much stuff, like what we were saying. And, you know, like, we have the adaptability that we could pick up anything like that and talk about it. And, you know, there's a lot of options, but thanks to Disney and all of these new stories that they're putting out with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, and, you know, being produced by Kathy and so many other people. Like, we're so lucky to get all these new stories.
Yeah, lots of people.
Yeah, lots of people involved. Like,
Josh Trank. Wait, not that one.
Whoops.
Gareth Edwards.
Yeah, Colin Trevorrow. There's lots of stories.
It's been a long
there.
decade.
Yeah, it's been a yeah. That great show called The Rangers of the New Republic. Yeah. Yeah, so many things. And, we're just so lucky to be able to, we would have these conversations anyway. But I think the most important thing is like, even though we would have these conversations anyway, it's cool that we can do that and like give that conversation to other people and kind of share it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
That's special. It's special every time.
So that's what I said at the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's always special.
Yeah. Which makes this entire podcast completely irrelevant to listen to. I said it at the beginning. What's the point of listening to the rest? That's all I got. That's everything we got going on. That's everything we got coming up. That's in
If
short.
you're on the fence about trying it, like give it a whirl. It's not nearly as difficult as it might seem.
Yeah, exactly. So it's it's a crazy platform to be putting out there, and I think we do a good job with privacy too. You know, it's a podcast, it's radio. Like I think we embrace that pretty well. Like, there's nothing out there with our faces on it. There doesn't need to be. It's like people go for the voice, and some of the YouTube shows out there, like that's their niche. Like they got the TV audience, we got the radio audience, much smaller. That's why we get no voice.
Because we have a better sound than looks.
That's right, for your ears only. All right, so
yeah, I'm worried if they saw us, they'd stop listening.
Is there anyone there?
Hello?
Are you there?
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we've definitely lost our audience now. All right, thank you everybody, and Blake, we will catch you in the next one.
We'll see you out there. Keep flying.
All right, thank you so much to our audience. We really appreciate all of you guys. There was one thing I did forget to mention, and that is that we have launched a Patreon page. Yes. And it's very small, and it's in our description. So, make sure you go check out the link tree. It's just a way to sort of recoup some of the expenses every year that this podcast does have. Do not feel obligated. It's just there if you want to throw some 2 cents in. But we love having an audience, that appreciates this podcast every week. And if you're a first-time listener, welcome. And, we hope that you guys have some sort of love for Star Wars podcast, just like we do, and some appreciation for the first Star Wars podcast ever made, which was Jedi Talk. So, in celebration of the 25th anniversary, it's been such a pleasure to talk about our own podcast for the first time in 300 episodes and more. And looking forward to many great episodes ahead with the Bad Batch right around the corner. We got a 15 episode season, I think it's 15 episode season for Bad Batch season 3, the final season, and many more Star Wars conversations after that. So you know where to find us in the podcast app of your choice. May the Force be with you, and we'll see you in the next episode of Star Wars Escape Pod.